Hey, you ever get that feeling there's something in the dark watching you? If you're like me, you can't look away. That's why I want to tell you about Creepy Shit. It's the podcast that dives into the strange, the haunted, the downright unholy, true crime that never got answers, folklore that refuses to die, and stories that cling to you long after you're done listening. Every week you're invited to sit by the fire with the rest of us creepers and hear something you'll want to share in a hushed voice. So if you're ready to explore things that might go bump in the night and things that don't make a sound at all, subscribe to Creepy Shit Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Join us. We've been waiting for you.
Research and recording of Canadian Creepies happens on the shared land and traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. A key treaty governing this territory is the Dish with One Spoon Agreement. The treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee people binds them to share and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, settlers, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. We all share the responsibility of ensuring the dish is never empty, meaning we must take care of the land and the creatures we share it with.
Canadian Creepies covers true crime, dark history, and disturbing events. Some episodes may include graphic descriptions or sensitive subject matter. We do our best to handle every story with care and respect for those affected. That said, we sometimes use humor and sarcasm as a way to process heavy content, never to disrespect victims, survivors, or their families. Listener discretion is advised. We want to be transparent with our listeners. Canadian Creepies is currently a non-profit project. We don't make any money from the podcast. However, any revenue that is generated from this series will be donated entirely to payyourrent.ca. The only ad you'll hear in this series will be a message about payyourrent.ca itself. PayYourRent.ca is an Indigenous-led initiative that calls on settlers and non-Indigenous people in Canada to pay voluntary ongoing contributions, or rent, to the Indigenous nations whose lands they live on. The platform helps direct funds to specific Indigenous communities and organizations supporting sovereignty, self-determination, and vital community needs. We believe it's one small way to move beyond words toward meaningful action.
Welcome back to the Canadian Creepy Summer Series. I'm Valerie.
And I'm Valerie. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of our deep dive into Canada's residential school system.
In our first episode, we explored the foundations, how this system was built on colonial ideologies, Christian missionary efforts, and government policy aimed at erasing Indigenous cultures and identities.
Today, we're stepping inside the schools. This part of the series is about what life was like for the children who were taken from their homes. It's heavy, it's painful, and it's necessary.
We'll talk about the daily routines, the punishments, the cultural suppression, and the systemic abuse that so many survivors have bravely shared. From overcrowding and starvation to forced labor and medical experimentation. The truth is hard, but it matters deeply.
We also want to be clear, this episode will include discussions of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, as well as themes of neglect and death. Please take care of yourself while listening.
Yet we've done our best to approach this story with care, respect, and a commitment to truth-telling. Residential schools weren't a tragic chapter. They were a system, and that system left generations of harm.
So with open hearts and grounded voices, let's begin. This is life inside the schools.
Let's do it.
Let's get into it. Hey.
Hey. I'm back. Oh, wait, no. I am back. I wasn't.
You were never gone.
I was never gone. This is the future.
One funny thing I did want to just say.
Oh, yeah.
The one funny thing I wanted to say that I thought you would appreciate. And I said this at work, and the people who know me at work
Agreed.
Really appreciated it. Okay. So I feel like you will too, knowing me for much longer.
Yeah.
So who I thought I was in Greece.
Okay. I've been seeing a lot of Greece lately. Yes.
Yeah. So who I thought I was in Greece was Rizzo.
Oh my God.
Or Marty. That's who I thought I was.
Okay.
You know who I actually am?
Who?
Patty Simcox.
Patty Simcox?
Yeah, I think that's actually me. Welcome to Rydell.
Yeah, Patty Simcox was actually pretty sweet.
Yeah,
but,
she's a chill character.
Oh my God, I need to rewatch it. Wait, who's the Browner? That's not Patty Simcox.
Yeah, that's Patty Simcox.
Oh, the Browner. You're not a Browner though. She was kind of like. In
high school, I was kind of like that.
Yeah, but she was passionate too.
Yeah,
and you're very passionate.
Yeah.
I feel like I would be maybe Rizzo.
Yeah.
Totes. I still feel like I am to this day.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. The Riz is sweet.
Yeah. Grease is a great movie.
Oh my God. I was just like.
No diversity at all. Absolutely.
Right.
There's
and they
I don't think there's one person of color
40.
in that film. Yeah. And everybody.
16, 17-year-olds.
Everybody was over the age of 25.
Yeah. Oh my God. Some of them were like, I think. No, they definitely were. They were like 25 to like 33 or 34. I remember seeing it in a TikTok.
That's
like the
so
actual
funny.
ages of what, portraying like 17, 18-year-olds.
Yeah. I would have to I don't think that would be easy to look up. Like that specific of information, or I would right now. Somebody send me an email with it. I'll put
Grease
it on.
Grease 2 is also, I liked it just as much
because
as
it's Olivia Newton-John. I've heard good things about Grease. Grease 2.
Let's bowl. Yeah.
Let's Bowl is one of the songs.
Let's rock and roll. Yeah.
Did you see Mufasa?
The live action?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
I guess there's no other movie. I was just thinking The Lion King. Like, no, I haven't seen it.
There's a really good song in it.
Oh,
I've always wanted a brother.
Oh my God, okay, I've listened. That's on
my.
Don't even get Jake started on it. I play it all the time.
I love that song.
I love it too. He hates it because I've played it so much. I do like the
it's
soundtrack.
Good. Yeah.
It's really good. It's super good. I'm like, we can blast it at the stand.
That's right. We should.
Oh, 100%.
We could,
all the soundtracks. It's because I have a niece and she just turned 5. And so we'll listen to like top Disney songs, Moana soundtrack, love it.
Moana.
Mermaid, love it.
Make
Lion
way,
King, love it.
Make way.
So good.
Moana, it's good to see.
And now there's a Lilo and Stitch live action.
Yeah, going to see that in theaters.
Heck
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So these are pre-recorded. So at the time of this recording, it'll be before Lilo and Stitch.
Right.
Comes out.
Gotcha.
Okay, are you
ready?
Okay, so now that we've lightened the mood, we're going to bring it back down.
Yes, exactly.
We're going to bring it completely down.
If you brought your hopes up,
we're going to bring it down.
We're going to tear them away.
Yeah, we're just going to completely... and Allie, whenever you feel like reading, well, I'll force it upon you at some point.
Yeah, I'm ready to just listen and you throw it on me.
Okay.
When you'd like me to.
And as always, interrupt whenever. And if we need to look something up, we will.
Sometimes I have lots of questions, so we'll see when they pop in.
Love. Okay, so the daily life of children in Canada's residential schools was rigid, harsh, and strictly controlled by religious and government-appointed authorities. Already stopping. That's why that's like not just residential schools, but upon other reasons. That's why there's the whole school of thought that is separation of church and state.
Can I say something else on this topic? Because we were just talking about movies. I just watched the movie Doubt.
Okay.
For anybody, who does it star? The lineup is really good, but okay, yeah, look it up, and then I don't want to say the synopsis, or maybe you can just read it out loud or whatever.
Oh, from 2008?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it won a bunch of Oscars. I think it was like Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best
Where were we in 2008? Graduating high school.
I just watched it like a week or two ago.
Wow.
At like 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. It was so good. It obviously has to do with doubt, having doubt. But the, what's it called? Like where it takes place is what you were. It has to do with church and.
Yeah. Should I read the?
Yeah, just read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doubt is a 2008 American drama film written and directed by John Patrick Shanley, based on his Pulitzer Prize-winning and Tony Award-winning 2004 stage play, Doubt, a Parable. Produced by Scott Rudin, the film takes place in a Catholic elementary school named for St. Nicholas. The film stars Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Amy Adams, and Viola Davis.
Such a good lineup.
Love Viola Davis. There's like this whole plot...
Yeah. It's pretty much like Meryl Streep maybe suspects something, goes around the whole doubt thing, and it's just a really, really brilliantly acted film, whatever you want to call it.
It says, here's the plot of Doubt summary. In 1964, the winds of change are sweeping through Sister Aloysius, Meryl Streep, St. Nicholas School. Father Flynn, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, R.I.P. Hoffman, a charismatic priest, is advocating reform of the school's strict customs, like that. And the first black student has just been accepted. Wow. When a fellow nun, Amy Adams, tells Sister Aloysius, that Father Flynn, email me the correct pronunciation. Yeah. That Father Flynn may be paying too much personal attention to the student, Sister Aloysius begins a personal crusade against the priest despite her lack of evidence. Whoa.
It's brilliant.
That sounds good.
Watch it.
That sounds
And that doesn't give away anything, so.
No, it didn't. Okay. So back into
Carry on.
That does sound good.
It wasn't that long either. Like, it wasn't a long watch.
Like, it wasn't like a 2.5 hour long movie.
Yeah. Sometimes I can't do that.
Okay. So these institutions, residential schools, were designed but I use the phrase institutions and systems because it wasn't just a school. Right. Saying a school is putting it lightly.
Yes.
These institutions were designed not as places of nurturing or education in the way that we understand schools today, but as tools for assimilation aiming to erase Indigenous identity, language, and culture. The structured routine emphasized discipline, obedience, and labor with severe punishments for any infractions. Many survivors have recounted the trauma of their time in these situations where kindness was rare and cruelty was common.
That's terrible.
I know, it's so sad. From the moment Indigenous children arrived at residential schools, they were stripped of their identity. They were often forcibly removed from their families, taken to long distances to unfamiliar institutions, and immediately subjected to strict routines. And I've said this before about colonization. These people were always fine and always evolving in their own way and at their own pace and defining productivity in their own way and traditions in their own way. Before we ruined that completely.
Stole it from them.
And stole it. Yeah. They were, gonna continue. They were forcibly removed. Oh, already read that. Okay, so here is an account of the arrival and processing in quotes. Okay. Children's traditional clothing was taken away and replaced with European-style uniforms, often ill-fitting and inadequate for the weather. Their hair was cut short, which was deeply traumatic for many Indigenous children. It is, as long hair often held cultural or spiritual significance. They were forbidden from speaking their Indigenous languages, and many children were assigned English or French names, erasing their original identities.
Wow.
One survivor account says, when I first got there, they cut my hair, they took my clothes, and they scrubbed me in a tub. It was like they were trying to wash the Indian off me.
Wow.
And that was a survivor testimony, and that's from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They also had very strict schedules. The schools operated on a strict military-like schedule. Days typically started early, sometimes as early as 5:30 or 6 a.m.
Damn.
That's fucking
too early.
Rude. And they followed a rigid structure. So they were woken up by a bell. Not a nice way to be woken up at all. Quick cold wash in communal basins.
Not even warm?
And also instilling a lot of dignity. That's great.
That's amazing.
A lot of self-work. Or making them...
Yeah.
Blah. Then they had silent prayer or religious service and breakfast, which was often small portions of poor quality food. Their morning classes, lessons focused on reading, writing, math, and religious instruction. No Indigenous history or cultural teachings were allowed. And then in the afternoon, they did labor.
Oh, that's great.
Wow. Weren't they lucky?
Yeah. And
weren't they lucky?
And we're rewarded by more labor.
Boys were forced to do farm work, carpentry, or maintenance. Girls did domestic labor such as laundry, cleaning, and sewing. Schools justified this forced labor as practical training, but it was largely unpaid labor that benefited the institutions.
I mean, I had labor chores when I was a kid living on a farm, but I was also like, I was given praise and thanks and sometimes
Good quality food.
good quality food. But like the praise was like, wow, it looks so good out. Like great job. Oh my goodness. I would never have been able to get through all this gardening without your help. Like, thank you so much. Like,
yeah,
that made it like not so bad. Like, I can imagine that these kids didn't get anything like that.
They got nothing. No, they got hit.
Yeah, they got hit. That's great. I'm not great. I'm being sarcastic.
Yes. Of course.
I just have to reiterate that. Okay.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. Don't leave anything to the imagination. Never assume.
Never assume.
In the evening, they would have a short period of recreation, usually monitored and restricted. So these children, were operating like fully grown ass adults, like getting up at 5:30.
Yeah.
Having a rest.
Yeah.
After your labor.
I'm a fully grown adult. I do long days and I don't even get up at 5:30. Once a week I go to market. But like, that's just ridiculous.
It is.
You're taking away.
They didn't get to play.
Yeah, you're taking away something they'll never, ever get back.
Never.
Never.
They'll never get it back. Dinner was often smaller and less nutritious than breakfast, so not even anything to look forward to. So after working hard all day...
You're starving.
Absolutely starving. Then they had religious instruction and prayer, and then lights out, often enforced early, and children were punished for talking after bedtime. There was also overcrowding. Dormitories were packed with dozens of children sleeping in the same room, often in poorly heated conditions. And students shared limited facilities, leading to the spread of disease.
I was just going to say, the germs. Like,
kids spread germs
so easily.
So easily.
Yeah.
And putting 12 of them in a room?
Like sardines.
Oh, my goodness. They were also malnourished because many schools provided minimal, low-quality food, leaving children constantly hungry and malnourished. And harsh conditions led to high rates of tuberculosis, influenza, and other diseases. So there were high rates of illness and death.
And that's when like the mass graves probably started to just huck them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And also...
I don't say that lightly, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
If I can toss them right into a pit.
Yeah. And not just that. Kids who died being tortured or sexually assaulted.
Sexually assaulted and silenced.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Survivor account...
Murdered.
Yes.
They were murdered.
They were murdered.
Yeah.
One survivor account is that the food was rotten most of the time. We used to get powdered milk, stale bread. We were always hungry. Some of the boys stole food from the pigs just to have something to eat.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. Wow. And that's a testimony from a former student, and it's in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission archives.
Wow.
Rules at the residential schools were brutally enforced, and any disobedience, real or perceived, resulted in severe punishments. The goal was total control, often through fear and violence. So what they were trying to do was basically create a class of labor.
Yes,
like,
slaves.
Slaves, yeah, labor force.
Labor force.
So
don't
that way,
talk back. Just listen.
And you're just going to be you're just only going to be reproducing to
Yeah.
So common rules are speaking Indigenous languages is strictly forbidden. Students were not allowed to contact their families except for rare censored letters. And the parents too, like your child was just ripped out of your arms.
Yeah, and you can probably tell that if you got a letter, it's not your child talking.
Yeah, when half of it's like redacted.
Yeah, exactly.
Boys and girls were segregated and had limited interaction, and religious instruction was mandatory, regardless of the child's original beliefs. Any perceived disrespect or questioning of authority was punished. Punishments ranged from verbal abuse to severe physical violence. Some children were beaten for speaking their language or failing to complete tasks, while others were locked in the dark, isolated rooms for hours or even days.
Yeah, like a prison.
Yeah, exactly like a prison.
Federal prison.
Yeah, and the people, people who get, what is it, solitary? That's not humane.
It's not humane. It's like, my God, punishment for what? Doing something that
for protecting yourself in a dangerous situation,
or something that like a child would naturally do. Every child would naturally do at some point. You're going to be like, that's so sick.
Yeah,
you're sick-minded.
Very sick. So the physical punishments included beatings with straps, sticks, or whips, forced kneeling for hours on hard floors or rough surfaces, confinement in closets or cold rooms, and forced ingestion of soap or other harmful substances as punishment for speaking Indigenous languages.
God. I mean, I know some of this, like, outside of residential schools existed as well. Like, type of punishments. It's just a sick form of, like, I don't know. Felix.
Felix just walked in. They're gonna can you say what you said again? I was distracted by Felix.
Oh, it's just like it's like the physical punishments that like you're talking about, like not only in residential schools, but like it just happened, but these just happened back in the day. Like these were just common. It's just fucked up.
It's messed up.
Yeah, it's messed up.
One survivor account said, "I got caught speaking my language. They made me hold out my hands and they whipped me until they bled."
Yeah.
Like a child. That happened to a child.
I feel like I've seen that on like a clip of like Our Heritage. Like, you remember the like
part of Our Heritage.
Part of Our Heritage kind of thing. Like a little clip of like it was acted, but really sad.
Yeah. There was also emotional and physical abuse.
Oh God, no doubt.
Yeah. Humiliation in front of peers, because they also wouldn't have wanted to allow the children to build trust between each other and form relationships. Because ultimately there's more of them than there were.
Yeah.
There's more kids than there were adults.
Right.
But humiliation in front of peers, verbal abuse, name calling and degradation, public punishments designed to shame the child, and threats of hellfire or damnation to force compliance with Christian teachings. Ugh. And there was sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Many survivors later revealed the horrific sexual abuse suffered at the hands of priests, nuns, and staff members. This was often covered up by the institutions and rarely punished.
Yeah, and some of the proof, aka the child, was taken care of.
Yeah. Taken care of, or traumatized to not say anything.
Exactly. Traumatized, fear, like, yeah. I can only imagine what was like pumped into their little innocent, beautiful brains.
Yeah. Innocent, beautiful, like pure. Also, there's
by monsters,
like by monsters, and those Indigenous children specifically who were colonized in this manner, like,
did they lead like a criminal?
No, like what I'm trying to say is about their energy and who they
just
were as people.
Changed
when they should have been just so in tune with the land and this earth. And
yes. They stole that from them. They stole that.
Yeah. From them. Yeah. Absolutely. So one anonymous survivor account from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is, "Some boys disappeared. We never knew what happened to them. Later, I found out they had been abused by priests." And here's the impact of these practices. The constant punishment, fear, and deprivation had lifelong consequences for Indigenous children who survived these schools. Many left deeply traumatized, struggling with issues such as PTSD, substance abuse, depression, and disconnection from their culture. Also probably survivor's guilt.
The survivor's guilt. Or what about the, what's it called when you end up feeling love for your abuser? Like you know what I mean? Not
Stockholm
syndrome.
I bet maybe some people were like very confused.
Well, when you watch the movie Doubt, it's like, I bet you there's something like that involved in it.
I can see that.
Or that's the question. Like, was it,
Yep. The systemic use of punishment to erase Indigenous identity has been widely recognized as a tool of cultural genocide. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report acknowledges that these institutions were designed to break children physically and mentally in order to forcibly assimilate them into settler society, colonizer society.
Colonizer. Cough. Colonizer.
Colonizer. The everyday reality of life in residential schools was one of strict control, relentless punishment, and emotional devastation. For many survivors, the wounds left by these experiences continue to affect them, their families, and their communities today.
Right.
All right. We're moving on to the next slide. I never know how to transition smoothly.
That's okay.
Okay, and that's set up for okay. The abuse Indigenous children suffered in residential schools was systemic, widespread, and horrifying in its brutality. Survivors and historical investigators have uncovered the harrowing details of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse inflicted by school staff, clergy, and even fellow students with little to no oversight or consequences. These institutions were not only places of forced assimilation, but also sites of relentless violence, suffering, and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Beatings and other forms of physical punishment were commonplace in residential schools, often inflicted for minor infractions or simply as a means of asserting dominance over the children. Like, they're adults, you're adults, the children know you're in charge.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to,
They know you're in charge.
Yeah.
If you, like, all I have to do is this voice with my son, and he knows I'm in charge.
You're also
like,
bigger than them.
Yeah, you're also bigger than them. They know you're in charge.
Yeah, it's so, yeah. Whatever you got to tell yourselves, it's such an excuse.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a joke.
Yeah.
Many students lived in a constant state of fear, knowing that the smallest mistake could result in severe pain.
Yeah.
And, like, also it's sad to think, like, little mistakes, like kids spilling stuff. They spill stuff because they're still working out their motor skills, their body's growing at weird times.
they're
Sometimes one leg's longer than the other, one
personality.
arm's longer than the other.
You're making robots, slaving robots. You're taking away their personality traits and their character. Like, fuck.
That's right.
Yeah. Just because you guys have none, fuck.
Right?
I mean, you do have a character. It's horrible.
So, common forms of physical abuse. We did talk about this
a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. This is a little redundant, but it adds in some extra layers of stuff.
Okay.
So, there was common forms of physical abuse with beatings with belts, straps, rulers, and sticks, used as routine punishment for disobedience, speaking Indigenous languages, or even crying.
God forbid you cry.
Yeah, heaven. Like,
God forbid
don't.
What
Heaven forbid
if
a
you
child
hurt
should cry.
yourself and you were crying because you hurt yourself, and
then
they
you're
thought,
gonna get hurt more.
Yeah, you're gonna get hurt more. Yeah.
So they also punched, slapped, and kicked. Staff members were known to physically assault children without provocation. They were also forced to kneel on sharp objects. Some were made to kneel for hours on rough surfaces such as dried beans, rocks, or pencils.
Nice.
They were burned and scalded. Hot objects were used to burn children as a form of punishment. And there was also restraints and confinement. Some children were tied to their beds or locked in small dark rooms for extended periods.
Like a psych ward.
Yeah.
A psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
Which was also a crazy thing back in the day, too.
Yeah.
It's another form of abuse, torture.
Yeah. Another survivor testimony is if you didn't do exactly what they told you, they hit you. If you were sick, they hit you. If they cried at night, they hit you. It didn't matter how small you were.
Oh.
And that was from a residential school survivor.
Aww.
One nun grabbed me and threw me down the stairs. I hit my head, but I couldn't cry because crying would mean another beating.
My goodness.
Some children were beaten so badly that they sustained permanent injuries, and in many cases, children died from their injuries. These deaths were often covered up by school authorities.
Injuries
so
being
no
like
accountability for
murdered.
The adults. Yeah, they
It's
were murdered.
murder.
And no
It's
accountability for the adults in the situation either.
Being
Love that.
beaten and
Love
dying
that. Let's
from
build
your
a country
injuries
off that.
is murder.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy.
So the
That's
goal...
wild.
Yeah. So the goal of residential schools was to strip Indigenous children of their identity, culture, and sense of self-worth. Staff members used emotional and psychological abuse to break their spirits and enforce compliance.
Yeah, and there was probably no remorse for the murder.
No, never any remorse.
Happened. No. On to the next one.
Yeah. Degrading and humiliating punishments. So children were mocked for their traditions, clothing, or language. They were told that their families were inferior. Many were taught that their parents were savages and that their traditional ways were evil. And that's
so
why we
sad.
don't use the word savage.
Right.
I think in episode 1, I accidentally used the word savage. So sorry about that.
But you would have corrected you anyways.
Anyway, I think I did say oops.
You definitely would have. I know you well enough.
I take it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Deliberate starvation. Some were denied. I feel like I can't just brush past it. I feel bad I said that word.
Yeah, but you probably said it in a sense that you were describing something like this. That they would have been considered or called that, but that's obviously not the right...
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, okay. I'll continue.
Like, that's
I'll
what they were
go.
thought of as.
Yes.
Even though we know... Like, sometimes you have to say the word. Like,
yeah.
otherwise... if we didn't say it.
I'm sure I used it in context.
You definitely did. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so there was deliberate starvation. Some were denied food as punishment or had to watch others eat while they were hungry.
Wow, that's
and if
so
I didn't, I'll just
cruel.
apologize. Somebody can email in and I'll apologize properly. It's fine. And I'm apologizing now as well. Okay, so I'm going to drop it. Let's take a moment during this break to talk about something that matters. Something that doesn't get to be background noise. The Anishinaabe-Moan word, Nikinagana, means we are all related, and we are. But relationship isn't just about words, it's about responsibility. Canadian author Naomi Klein once said, "It is not enough to say that we live on Indigenous land. We have to act as if we do." And one way to do that is by supporting Pay Your Rent, a grassroots mutual aid initiative that offers direct material support to Indigenous organizers across this land. It's not charity, it's rent. For those of us who aren't Indigenous to this place, it's a way to show up differently, to redistribute some of what's been taken. The Pay Your Rent Fund started as a one-time request for help in 2018 and grew into a nonprofit called Nikinagana. Your monthly or one-time donation can help provide food, hygiene supplies, housing support, and resources for Indigenous-led resistance and community care. So if you've ever said, "We're all related," ask yourself, are you being a good relative? Visit payyourrent.ca and find out more about how you can be part of something better. Now, back to this case.
Yeah, that's so cruel, though.
It's so cruel with the denied food.
Yeah, and like someone eating in front of someone that's so mean.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And there was isolation and forced silence. They were prevented from speaking to their siblings or friends, making them feel alone. And there was gaslighting and manipulation. Abusers would tell children they were imagining their suffering or that it was for their own good.
It's a sick world.
It's sick. Here's some survivor testimonies. The nuns would tell us that our mothers and fathers were drunks, that they didn't love us, that we were better off here. I was just a little kid and I started to believe
brainwashing.
Yeah.
Wow.
They changed my name, they cut my hair, they told me my language was dirty, and when I cried for my mother, they laughed at me.
Wow. Heartless.
This form of abuse had long-lasting effects, leaving many survivors with deep feelings of shame, worthlessness, and disconnection from their families and cultures.
Talk about fucking sadism.
Yeah. And next we're going to get into the sexual abuse element. So anybody who doesn't want to hear this, you can just skip forward. Perhaps the most horrific and lasting trauma of residential schools was the widespread sexual abuse suffered by Indigenous children. Priests, nuns, and other staff members took advantage of the vulnerable children in their care, often with no repercussions. Many students were too young to understand what was happening to them, and if they tried to report it, they were either ignored, punished, or disbelieved.
Because they were all in on it.
Yeah, every single one of them was in on it.
They all backed each other.
It's fucking brutal.
They didn't stand a chance.
They didn't stand a chance.
The poor little things.
We just came over from England. We just came over from England and snatched up their kids and fucked everything up.
Wow.
I'm sorry. So here are the patterns of sexual abuse. There was molestation and rape by priests, nuns, and school staff. Some abusers targeted specific children, while others assaulted multiple students. Mm-hmm. Older students were forced to abuse younger ones.
Wow.
Staff members sometimes turned students against each other, using them to continue cycles of abuse. There were punishments involving sexual humiliation. Some were stripped naked in front of peers, touched inappropriately as a part of discipline, or forced to engage in degrading acts. And there were threats and coercion to ensure silence. Many abusers told children if they spoke out, they would be punished or sent to hell. And I'll say these survivor testimonies, and then I think we'll just take a moment of silence as well.
Sure.
I was just a little girl. A priest took me out of bed at night. I didn't understand what was happening. When I tried to tell a nun, she slapped me and said I was lying. They took my childhood from me. They stole everything, and when I left, I couldn't talk about it because I thought no one would believe me. Reports show that sexual abuse was alarmingly common in these schools, with thousands of survivors coming forward over the years. Tragically, many did not survive, either dying from the abuse itself or later taking their lives due to the trauma.
My heart. That breaks my heart.
Right? And I think before we go on, we should just
let's take a little moment.
Yeah.
That's fucked.
It's fucked. It's fucked. So the church and government, so this is where when people talk about, and I just want to for some people that might not know, when we talk about when feminists and leftist people talk about systemic sexism, systemic racism, systemic any ableism, systemic anything, it pretty much started around this time.
Yes.
Yeah. So the systemic cover-up of abuse. The church and government work together to suppress reports of abuse. That's how our government started.
I feel like it still is in a lot of aspects.
Totally. And that's why you
together.
And that's why you got to keep your listeners, all you can do, not all you can do, but one thing you can do is bug your MP, your member of parliament, and your MPP, your member of provincial parliament.
Protest, use your voice.
Use your voice. And if you want to know how, send me an email.
Yeah, Val is the
I
one to go
will
to.
connect you no matter where you are in Canada. I am sure I will be able to find you an organization close to you for the thing you're trying to help with.
Val's
and if there isn't one,
everything I've needed help with.
And if there isn't one, that's your sign to start one.
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree with this.
And I'll help you how I can.
And the thing is, she will happily and gladly help. She wants to.
Yeah. So shoot me an email.
Shoot an email.
You don't know if you don't
use one of the
ask me.
Yeah, use one of the platforms.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so many abusers were quietly moved to different schools rather than being punished. So moved to a fresh crop of children to abuse.
Okay.
Complaints from children and their families were ignored, dismissed, or outright denied. Investigations into complaints were rare, and when they did occur, they often protected the abusers rather than the victims. See, that's where it starts, friends. It started from here.
Yes.
Started here in Canada.
Yeah.
Didn't just start here, but this is one of the starting points. Survivors.
There's lots of starting points.
Yes.
And we are one of them.
Yes. Survivors who came forward later in life often faced disbelief and legal battles to have their voices heard. And the full scope of abuse was not acknowledged until the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was 2008 to 2015, which documented thousands of cases of abuse and neglect. So not even close to all of them, just the people who came forward and would talk about it.
All right. What's the rain?
Oh.
It's pouring outside.
The trauma inflicted by residential schools did not end when the schools closed. Survivors have carried the scars of their abuse into adulthood with lasting effects such as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which includes flashback, nightmares, and severe anxiety. Addiction and substance abuse. Many turn to alcohol or drugs to cope with the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide and self-harm. The rates of suicide among survivors are significantly higher than the general population.
That's so sad.
Many survivors, loss of culture and identity. Many survivors struggle to reconnect with their Indigenous heritage. And intergenerational trauma. The effects of abuse were passed down to future generations, impacting families and communities.
That is exactly it. That's everything what I would think that is so sad. Every aspect of that.
It's devastatingly sad.
Devastatingly sad. It's a good way to put it.
One survivor account said, "When I left, I didn't know how to love. They took that from me. I didn't know how to be a mother because I had never been shown love."
Wow.
And
it's so raw.
It's so raw. In recent years, the Canadian government and churches involved have issued apologies. Your apology doesn't mean fucking shit.
I don't want to hear it.
Your apology doesn't mean shit. Yeah. Give land back. Give them money. Give the money to the right people.
Yes.
Fucking make it right.
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh, sorry.
We're really
It's
sorry."
Really
but
not
then
enough.
You have
really not
Polyev and people that back up the thoughts of want to integrate them again. Like, oh
stop.
my
Like, don't.
Oh my god.
Don't.
No, I don't want to say. I'm so sorry. I said this last episode.
Not careful.
I need to like cut out my god talk. Oh my queepies.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
However, many feel that justice has never truly been served. Yeah, we agree.
Well, yeah.
As the majority of abusers never faced legal consequences.
And never will.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission documented thousands of stories and issued 94 calls to action urging government and religious institutions to take responsibility. They're like, just please say sorry. The National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls found that residential schools played a role in the ongoing crisis of violence against Indigenous people. And unmarked graves continued to be found at residential school sites, proving that many children never made it home.
So eerie.
The abuse endured in residential schools was not just a dark chapter in Canadian history, it was systemic, government-funded effort to erase Indigenous peoples. The pain, loss, and trauma continue to affect survivors and their descendants today. I'll say these again at the end, but for those who need support, there are resources available. There's the Indian Residential School Crisis Line at 1-866-925-4419 and the Hope for Wellness Helpline at 1-855-242-3310.
Very good.
And now, so this ad, I'm going to say it once, and then you're going to say it once.
Okay.
And then we're going to splice it and then use.
Okay.
Before we get back into the story, we want to take a moment to talk about something real, something that ties directly into the kind of history we explore here on Canadian Creepies. We know that Canada's past is haunted, not just by ghosts, but by land theft, broken treaties, and colonial violence that's still unfolding today. PayYourRent.ca is a grassroots initiative that invites settlers and non-Indigenous folks to contribute financially to Indigenous communities as an act of accountability, not charity. It's a way to recognize the land you're on, support Indigenous sovereignty, and take a small but meaningful step towards justice. To learn more or start contributing, visit PayYourRent.ca. That's PayYourRent.ca. All right, let's get back to the creepiness.
Before we get back into the story, we want to take a moment to talk about something real, something that ties directly into the kind of history we explore here on Canadian Creepies. We know that Canada's past is haunted, not just by ghosts, but by land theft, broken treaties, and colonial violence that's still unfolding today. PayYourRent.ca is a grassroots initiative that invites settlers and non-Indigenous folks to contribute financially to Indigenous communities as an act of accountability, not charity. It is a way to recognize the land you're on, support Indigenous sovereignty, and to take a small but meaningful step towards justice. To learn more or to start contributing, visit PayYourRent.ca. That's PayYourRent.ca. All right, let's get back into the creepiness.
Nice. That's good.
Very good, very good.
Very good. Okay, just 3 more, and then we're good.
All right.
The abuses in Canada's residential school system extended far beyond forced assimilation and physical violence. Many Indigenous children were subjected to deliberate starvation and medical experimentation. Government policies and scientific studies conducted within these institutions treated Indigenous children as test subjects, depriving them of basic nutrition and exposing them to harmful medical trials without consent.
My goodness.
I know, fucking
that
brutal.
Is so what's it called? Frankenstein-y stuff.
Yeah. These actions caused lasting physical and psychological harm, understandably, contributing to the ongoing health disparities faced by Indigenous communities today.
It's like another form of Auschwitz.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the vibe I'm getting.
But pre-Auschwitz.
Pre-Auschwitz, yeah.
Food was frequently used as a means of control and punishment in residential schools. Indigenous children were often deliberately underfed, given spoiled or insufficient food, and forced to endure extreme hunger while school officials and staff ate well.
My goodness. How do you, they confidently looked at themselves in the mirror, too.
This is for the betterment of the world.
Yes.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Very
is
scary.
What it is. Anything done at the expense of anybody is never better for the world.
No.
Never.
Children is just next level.
Yeah. So here are the causes of starvation in residential schools. Okay. So chronic underfunding and neglect. The Canadian government deliberately underfunded Indigenous education, including food budgets. There was deliberate food deprivation as punishment, as we talked about. Children were denied food as a disciplinary measure.
Yeah.
Nutritional experiments conducted by government scientists. Many schools participated in studies that restricted children's diets to study the effects of malnutrition.
Oh, here, I can tell you one thing. Their ribs are going to start to show. They're going to develop
it's
really
not gonna be
chronic
good.
problems, and then they're eventually going to die.
If you know malnutrition is not good, why would you... What? Okay.
It's just a sick excuse just to torture.
Yeah, it is.
We're doing it for research.
Oh, it's for the whites.
Yeah.
Fuck us.
Yeah.
We can get fucked, us whites. Meals often contained... so there was low quality and spoiled food. Meals often contained moldy bread, rotten meat, or thin gruel with little nutritional value. Gruel just reminds me of The Simpsons.
Yeah, what's that from? What episode is that from? Gruel.
Like the gruel episode.
Yeah, the gruel episode. We'll have to look into that after.
There was forced labor in school. I'll clip it.
Yes.
There was forced labor in school farms. Many schools had their own farms, but children were often forced to work rather than eat the food they produced.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Yeah.
It
makes total sense.
Right, yeah. Love that. Don't even let them eat what they worked so hard for.
Reap what they
But everybody else in the country will enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in the colony or wherever the fuck you were.
Yeah.
So these survivor testimonies, we were always hungry, always. We would steal food from the pigs or dig through garbage just to find something to eat. The nuns made us sit at the table and eat moldy bread, the maggoty meat. If we threw up, we had to eat that too. Oh my gosh.
I can't with this.
That's awful.
I can't with this.
Wow.
This is like...
horrible. This is like a horror movie.
Literally, I was
Worse
just going to say... what's that
Stand
movie?
By Me.
No, yeah, but no, I'm thinking of like the little guy that rolls out on the tricycle.
Saw.
It's just like sick,
throw up.
sick,
You must.
sick.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's just sick.
Yeah, it's deplorable.
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably a really bad example, but I just imagine like if I'm going to eat maggoty food, and if I don't eat it, and I don't eat the barf that I barf up, they're gonna hurt me to the point where I could potentially die from that. That reminds me of like a Saw thing.
I hope every one of these adults got arthritis, and I hope no one went to their funerals.
Oh gosh.
I hope their children hated them.
Yeah.
I hope their children went no contact. Despite these horrific conditions, some survivors recalled acts of kindness from fellow students and even some sympathetic staff who would secretly slip them food, extra food. However, these were rare moments in an otherwise cruel system.
Yeah.
So there were government-sanctioned nutritional experiments in the 1940s and 50s. Guys, this isn't that long ago. That's not even 100 years ago. Not even. That's within a lifetime. One of the most... So, like, your grandparent potentially lived at the same time as a residential school.
That's wild.
Come on.
Yeah.
One of the most disturbing aspects of the residential school system was the use of Indigenous children as test subjects for nutritional experiments conducted by Canadian government scientists, including Dr. Lionel Pett, a leading nutritionist of the time. If you're a nutritionist, don't you want to do things to keep people healthy? Like
like we all know that like not eating and
is
like
not
eating
good.
maggots and like eating soiled,
I think throughout
like, meat
time
and stuff,
we've all known that.
Yeah,
that didn't need to be tested.
Yeah, like you adults could just.
This is why men shouldn't do science.
Yeah, agreed.
These experiments.
Yeah.
Just cis men. Just cis men.
Yeah.
The gays, the bis,
we love ya.
The pans.
We love you, even if you don't love us, science. We love you. Yeah.
And my son can do science.
Yeah.
These experiments, I know everybody says that, but I'm an intersectional feminist. I'm raising him. He's been to Palestine protests with me. He has. He's good. He's good. These experiments aim to study the effects of malnutrition and different vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Like, again, I don't know. Why did he think, hey, let's see what they'll do really bad without?
Yeah, exactly.
So children were denied essential nutrients. Some groups of children were intentionally deprived of milk, meat, or certain vitamins to observe the effects. There was also controlled starvation, so food portions were restricted for months or years, leading to extreme hunger and physical deterioration. There was a lack of medical treatment. Even when it was clear children were suffering from malnutrition-related illnesses, medical help was often withheld so the effects could be studied. And testing fortified foods. Some children were given food infused with vitamins and minerals, while others were left without these nutrients to compare their development.
And like, why do these, like, couldn't you just like, why did it have to be at like residential schools? Like, couldn't you like, aren't there like scientists and like,
you just don't have to test
in the healthcare world outside of residential schooling?
Why do you need to test the development of children who are being malnourished? Like, that's just not.
And not that I
doesn't need to be tested. I mean, you just know kids don't do well not eating.
Yeah, and I'm not for animal testing, but it's like, well, couldn't you have like maybe done some of these tests on like why, like, does
a cat?
Did this
not
all
that
have
we're
to be,
advocating for that. We don't think that is proper either.
Yeah, I gave up meat for 10 years for ethical reasons.
Ethical reasons.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, I mean,
you're like, I don't contribute to the meat industry.
Like, could it just not? Like, did you have to do it with like resident, like, well,
with children? Did you have to do it with children?
I can't articulate.
Beautiful children who are born naturally closer to the earth than anybody on the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who have like, anyway.
Couldn't you like test it on a fucking adult?
Yeah. Test on yourself.
Test it on
yourself. See how you develop with no nutrients, you weirdo.
Right.
So the key locations for these experiments.
But it's like, hold on, sorry.
That's okay.
Wouldn't war have existed? Like, couldn't you have seen what like
in the 40s and 50s? Yeah, there was some sort of war.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure.
It's like, couldn't you have just like looked back on like historical evidence to show that
precedent, find some sort of precedent?
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure like the 1800s, 1900s,
like in the Great Depression.
Like,
how were the children of the Great Depression?
How were human? Like, couldn't you have just gone back? Like, why did you have to do it again? Like, anyways,
so horribly.
These tests seem very stupid to like. We already know the answers to it from evidence of historical events. Like, you didn't need to do that. Like, it's just very
common sense. It's just common sense. We know the children won't do well without nutrients.
It's very unnecessary.
We know that. We know that for a fact.
Sick tactic to like.
Yeah, it's just an excuse to torture people.
Yeah, exactly.
So key locations for these experiments were St. Mary's Residential School in Kenora, Ontario, Shubenacadie Residential School in Nova Scotia, Alberni Residential School in British Columbia, and Norway House Cree Nation in Manitoba. Some survivor testimonies. We were a part of an experiment, but nobody told us. They let us starve while they took notes. I remember kids dying. They were weak, sick, always coughing. Nobody did anything.
Wow.
And you know what? They
probably
learned,
just wanted their parents.
Yeah, honestly, they just wanted to go home. They just wanted to speak their fucking language and be with their siblings and go
to mom or to dad.
So the effects of starvation on the children, they had their growth was stunted.
Could have told you that.
Weakened immune systems, leading to high rates of tuberculosis and other diseases.
Yeah, could have told you that too.
Severe vitamin deficiencies, rickets, scurvy, and anemia. Developmental delays. Permanent damage to organs.
No shit.
And increased mortality rates.
Well, yeah, everything that I could have fucking said.
We could have.
Yeah,
you didn't even have to experiment on a child, and I could have just taken an educated guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially this one, the severe vitamin deficiencies.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's what's going to happen when you don't get the vitamins you need.
Permanent damage to organs. Yeah, I would think that nothing good would come
deprived.
Of prolonged deprivation. Yeah.
Of food.
Yeah.
And eating maggots. Yeah, great. So the Truth and Reconciliation Commission found that many children who died in residential schools were victims of malnutrition, and their deaths were rarely investigated.
Malnutrition is another form of murder.
Yes.
This is all murder.
Yes.
This is all fucking murder. You knew that nothing good was going to come of it. Then they died from it. You could have prevented it.
That's
you
murder.
didn't. You
it's
murdered
genocide.
these. Yeah, it's genocide. It's a fucking genocide.
It's a genocide.
Wow, it's wild
so
to hear like them try to word it in another just say it what it is.
Beyond nutritional experiments, Indigenous children were also subjected to unethical medical testing, often without their knowledge or consent.
Yeah.
So the types of medical experimentation were vaccination trials.
And I don't want to hear that, like, we went through that with COVID.
Yeah, no, it's not the same.
No.
So there was vaccination trials. Experimental vaccines were tested on children, some of whom suffered severe reactions. Tuberculosis testing. Children with tuberculosis were intentionally left untreated to observe the progression of the disease.
Wow.
Dental experiments. Some students were denied dental care to study the effects of malnutrition on oral health. And psychological studies. Some schools subjected children to extreme stress to test emotional resilience.
give me everything above that. I don't want the stress test.
Yeah.
That would just I'd go insane.
Yeah.
All of these tests, just look at history.
Yeah.
Look at
know.
ancient times. Look at history. You
And
don't
also
need,
it was
this
the
is
40s
so
and
unnecessary.
50s. Also, it was the 40s and 50s. I can guarantee you there was some homeless people. Like, why not just observe a homeless person's corpse?
This
after
is absolutely insane. This is insanity.
Wow.
Wow.
Not that makes it, but I just don't want this to get clipped. I hope everyone understands what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's
but I will apologize. I'll always apologize when I say
we can just go back to Roman times. Go back to you just did, this was so unnecessary. This is just a sick tactic. Anyways.
Yeah. Indigenous children were disproportionately affected by tuberculosis due to poor living conditions in residential schools. Rather than providing proper medical treatment, Canadian government scientists allowed the disease to spread unchecked in certain schools to study its progression. Mm-hmm. Some children were deliberately infected with TB as a part of the research studies.
That's insane.
Many were denied treatment even when antibiotics became available in the 1940s and 1950s.
Wow.
Yeah. Dr. Peter Bryce, a government medical inspector, attempted to expose the high mortality rates caused by tuberculosis in the schools, but his warnings were ignored by Canadian officials. I was going to
say, tell me he committed suicide randomly.
Yeah. He just died all of a sudden.
Died all of a sudden, yeah.
The effects of starvation and medical experimentation in residential schools did not end with their closure. Survivors and their descendants have suffered long-term health consequences. So they have higher rates of chronic illness, diabetes, heart disease, and obesity, weakened immune systems due to childhood malnutrition, higher rates of tuberculosis and respiratory diseases in Indigenous communities, psychological trauma and eating disorders stemming from childhood starvation, and deep mistrust of the Canadian healthcare system. One survivor account says, even today I can't waste food. I hoard my food in my house because I remember what it was like to be starving every single day.
That's so sad.
Another residential school survivor said, when I go to the doctor, I don't trust them. They experimented on us before, and I always wonder if they're still doing it now.
Wow. Poor things.
In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission confirmed that Indigenous children were used as test subjects in medical experiments. Survivors have demanded formal apologies and compensation, but many feel justice has not been served. The Canadian government has acknowledged these experiments, but has yet to hold specific individuals accountable. In 2021, the discovery of unmarked graves at former residential school sites further confirmed the extent of death, neglect, and suffering that these children endured. Investigations into these graves are ongoing, and Indigenous communities continue to seek the full truth. The starvation and medical experimentation in residential schools were deliberate acts of cruelty, not accidents or isolated incidents. These policies were part of a systemic effort to erase Indigenous identity and harm Indigenous children. The suffering caused by these schools continues to be felt today, with many survivors carrying both physical and emotional scars.
You know how we were talking about how, in the government, they back each other up and cover for each other and stuff. It's yes, they've discovered unmarked graves, but it's how much are they going to cover up that we'll never...
That we'll never know.
Yeah, that pisses me off. Because it will happen.
Yeah. And the last thing we're going to talk about today before we, the last part of the section...
Yeah.
...is the role of Catholic, Anglican, United, and Presbyterian churches in the residential school system in Canada. It was central to its operation and the policies of cultural eradication, forced assimilation, and systemic abuse inflicted upon Indigenous children. Each denomination was responsible for running different schools with varying degrees of control and involvement over time. Survivors' testimonies, government records, and investigations into abuses have painted a harrowing picture of the church's role in the system. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church was the most involved of all religious institutions, operating about 60 to 70% of residential schools. Mm-hmm. The Catholic orders, including Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate, Jesuits, Grey Nuns, and Sisters of St. Anne, were heavily involved in running these schools, enforcing discipline, and controlling nearly every aspect of the children's lives. Fuck those women.
Yeah, fuck them. We don't claim them.
We don't claim them. They're not ours.
Nope.
Doctrinal justifications and forced assimilation. So Catholic missionaries believed it was their divine duty to save the souls of Indigenous children by converting them to Christianity and erasing their cultural practices. Like, well, how douchey.
So douchey.
They imposed strict religious teachings, often forbidding students from speaking their own languages or practicing traditional beliefs. And baptisms, forced confessions, and mass attendance were daily requirements.
You're not cool.
No. There were extreme physical punishments. They were commonplace. Survivors recount beatings for minor infractions, such as speaking their native language. Mm-hmm. Sexual abuse was rampant, with multiple priests and nuns later found guilty of decades-long abuse. Ugh. And, as we talked about, starvation and medical experimentation were prevalent. At St. Anne's Residential School in Ontario, children were subjected to electric chair punishment as a form of discipline.
That's crazy.
This survivor, Edmund Medawataben, he's a survivor of the St. Anne's Residential School in Ontario. He said, "We were strapped, beaten, and thrown into the electric chair if we didn't comply. I remember the pain shooting through my body. It was terrorizing."
Oh, that is wild.
Phil Fontaine was a former national chief of the Assembly of First Nations and is a survivor of Fort Alexander Residential School in Manitoba. "We were physically and mentally tortured. It was the Catholic priests and nuns who did this. They were supposed to be our caretakers."
Yeah. What a letdown.
Right?
I'm sorry.
I'm also sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, the Anglican Church of Canada ran approximately 35 residential schools. While its involvement was slightly less extensive than the Catholic Church, its role in enforcing assimilation and committing abuses was still profound.
Right.
Anglican missionaries emphasized civilizing, in air quotes, Indigenous children by removing all traces of their culture. Bibles and prayer books were printed in Indigenous languages, but only used in a controlled way, preventing children from truly maintaining their linguistic and spiritual heritage. And hymns and strict daily prayer routines were mandatory. There was harsh discipline and system neglect still. Beatings with straps, whips, and canes were common punishments. Children were often humiliated, and that horrible kneeling punishment. Mm-hmm. And poor medical care led to high death rates in Anglican-run schools, with tuberculosis and malnutrition rampant.
Yeah.
Ralph Winter is a survivor of Gordon's Residential School in Saskatchewan, and he said, "They didn't just take our language, they took our spirits. We were scared of them, of the priests, of the teachers, and of the so-called caregivers.
No doubt.
They didn't see us as children, they saw us as something to be corrected."
Corrected? That's so fucked.
Awful. And Reverend Andrew Wesley, he's a Cree elder, survivor of St. Anne's Residential School, said, "They would force you to pray, but they did not act like men of God. They stole, they beat, they raped. The church was our tormentor."
Wow. Isn't that some strong words?
Yeah. And I really wanted to just quote what Aunt Lydia said in The Handmaid's Tale last night, but I can't. I have to do it off mic. Yeah, it's a spoiler. I have to do it off mic. Okay, so the United Church of Canada was formed in 1925. So we're done with we've been through the Catholics. We've been through the Anglicans. Yes. Now we're up to the United Church of Canada.
Dang.
They were formed in 1925.
Okay.
Inherited control of many Methodist and Presbyterian run schools. So it operated 15 residential schools with a focus on education and missionary work.
Yeah, okay. Sound very missionary.
Yeah. Well, the United Church was one of the first to issue apologies in 1986. It still participated in forcible assimilation and abusive conditions for decades.
I think a missionary, just teaching and teaching alone. Like, teaching like the word of God, or teaching English, or teaching, not like stealing your identity and like. But
that's what that's true. Like, we've never been at the other end of missionary work, so right. We don't know.
No,
we don't know the experience.
Like I said, I have like friends that have like siblings that I've talked to that have done like missionary work and like.
Oh, true.
And it seems, but then again, I don't.
But you don't know what they did. You don't know what they actually
did. I'm not bashing anyone. I have freedom of religion. I just don't believe in it, and so it sounds like a lot of jibber jabber. But
jibber jabber.
Let's just keep going. Because I could talk forever on that.
Children were subjected to harsh discipline, emotional abuse, and forced labor. And though the United Church tried to emphasize Christian kindness, many survivors do not recall any kindness at all. Elijah Harper, who is a survivor and a politician and Indigenous leader, said the United Church tried to make itself seem kinder, but we were still prisoners. It was still a place of terror for children. The Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
Ran about...
Technically, that's what I am.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
What, Presbyterian?
Yeah.
Oh, technically I'm Anglican. I don't claim it.
I don't claim any of this.
I don't claim it.
Jibber
I was
jabber.
baptized Anglican. You were baptized Presbyterian. And what's the freaking difference? Who knows? Don't
Nah.
email me about
Yeah,
it.
just-
Don't email me about
I
it.
don't claim it.
I'll Google it if I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. If I want to know,
If I
I'll
really
look
want to
into
know,
it.
I'll look into it. But I'm not going to give... In this episode, I'm not going to give the church that kind of respect.
No, absolutely
It's not
not.
the time to give the church the respect.
No.
So the Presbyterian Church, Presbyterian, ran about a dozen schools, though many of them were absorbed into the United Church after 1925. Presbyterians focused on strict educational control, often discouraging even limited Indigenous cultural expression, and many of their schools mirrored Anglican and Catholic models, enforcing discipline through harsh punishment and religious identity.
Ugh.
John Jones, who's a survivor of a Presbyterian-run school, said, "They were just as cruel as the rest.
Yeah.
They told us our culture was evil, our songs were sinful. We were nothing to them."
Ew, I hate that it's like I was even ever associated with that word.
Right? The P word.
The P word.
For decades, the Catholic, Anglican, United, and Presbyterian churches refused to take full responsibility for their roles in the residential school system.
They refused?
They refused.
Yeah, okay, of course.
Many denied abuse allegations, calling survivors liars. Why would you just lie about that? And as a child, I can attest that, like, I have a son, and my son is not sexualized. So I know that like, you know, kids don't just come up with this stuff.
No, I agree.
They don't just come up with this stuff.
And they don't get...
They're not developmentally there to come up with this stuff.
Agreed.
They're just not.
Yeah.
Church records were hidden or destroyed to avoid legal consequences.
Yes.
And apologies were slow and in some cases never truly given.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church has yet to issue a full unequivocal apology despite Pope Francis visiting Canada in 2022 to acknowledge the suffering caused. And the Anglican, United, and Presbyterian churches issued formal apologies in 1986. That was the United. 1993 Anglican, and in 1994 Presbyterian. And your apologies mean shit.
Yeah.
You have hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Give them money.
Yeah.
Give them money.
Give anything else.
Give
so
them
just
money.
We don't just save it.
What we've talked about today isn't easy to hear, but for many survivors and their families, it was their reality. These stories aren't distant history, they're living memory.
And the and the impacts are still being felt. Isn't that the truth? Trauma doesn't end when a building closes or when a government issues an apology. The legacy of residential schools continues in the systems, structures, and struggles Indigenous communities face today.
If this episode has brought up anything for you, please know that support is available. The Indian Residential School Crisis Line is open 24/7 at 1-866-925-4419.
We also encourage you to take this knowledge with you, learn more, talk about it, support Indigenous-led organizations and efforts, like the ones we've linked in the show notes.
Next time, we're going to explore how students resisted.
Yes.
The runaways, the rebels.
Oh, I can't wait.
The ones who found ways to hold on to the culture and fight back in whatever ways they could.
Because even in the darkest places, there were sparks of survival, and those sparks deserve to be remembered.
Thanks for walking this path with us.
Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay creepy.
Creepy.
Don't let the bed weaves fight.